What's going on, everyone? So welcome to my latest video. In case you're new to the channel, as you might have been able to tell, I'm a pretty big fan of physical media. I have over 500 Blu-rays and 4Ks. I think physical media is fantastic. It's great because I get that streaming is very convenient and that's something that is nice for a lot of people, but think about it. How many times have you gone on a streaming service and you're like, wait a minute, that movie I wanted to see, it's no longer on this app. I can't believe it. And then you look it up and it's like, oh, it's on this app. Well, I don't have that app, so what am I going to do? You don't have to worry about that with physical media. The other thing is physical media is much, much higher quality, which is amazing. And this video, you guessed it, I'm talking about top 10 streaming movies I want on physical media. So this is basically me saying to studios, hey, get your act together and put these movies actually on physical media so that way it will actually last for an eternity. Because as we saw with Hush, which is I guess we should say was a Netflix movie. Hush was a Netflix movie, but then it got taken off. And now Mike Flanagan has to pretty much try to get it on some other streaming service and might even also have that on physical media. So, which is nice. But that's my point though. Streaming movies aren't safe. They aren't the type of situation where it's like a guarantee that they will be lasting for eternity. Because what if one of these studios, these streaming studios decides to, go bankrupt and something happens? It's like, well, if you didn't have it on physical media, then those movies are gone probably. So it's a shame. And that's why, again, these are the 10 movies I'm going to be talking about where I'm saying, hey, put them on physical media, please. But before I go into my, top 10 that in my opinion, belong on physical media, I will be giving 2 honorable mentions, and I'll go from 10 to 1 being the number 1 that I think should go on physical media. So strap in, and of course, I will be looking forward to seeing your top 10 in the comment section down below. But guys, enough exposition. Let's get started. So kicking things off with honorable mentions, we have Blonde. Yes, I know that movie was controversial when it came out, and many, many people hated it, but let's be honest. The video and audio quality are incredible. This deserves a 4K physical media. Like, holy cow. Could you imagine what HDR, like real HDR, would look like? Yeah, it would be pretty amazing. The other one that I wanted to mention is Mank, which ironically is another movie that has a lot of black and white. Well, in this case, 100% black and white. Mank, I don't think is a perfect movie, just like Blonde, I don't think is a perfect movie. I think they're both solid, but they're both movies where I watched and I'm like, holy cow, like from a filmmaking standpoint, they are top notch. But as of, again, the filming of this video, neither of these Netflix movies that were prestigious when they came out don't have physical media. So again, these are the 2 honorable mentions for me. So those are the honorable mentions. Let's get started with number 10. So my number 10 is a movie called Master. It came out in 2022. It is on Amazon Prime. This is one that you probably haven't heard of, or if you have, not the best reviews in terms of audiences. Critics liked it, audiences didn't. As you can tell, I lean towards the critics with this one. I think that this movie is one of those cases where the uses of shadows, the lighting, and the colors of the cinematography are all really, really important. And whilst the streaming of it was solid, it's definitely a movie where I can imagine what a 4K or even a Blu-ray would look like. I can imagine those being really, really good. So I'm hoping that we get a physical media release someday, but I know it's a long shot for this one because, as I mentioned, audiences really didn't like it and it, didn't exactly pick up any award buzz. So it's a long shot, but who knows? Maybe we'll get it at some point in time. And Master's my number 10. Next up, my number 9, we have a Netflix film called May December. This is a Todd Haynes film. Pretty big fan of the director. I do own Dark Waters on Blu-ray as well as Carol on Blu-ray. He is a director that whenever he has something come out, I'm always looking forward to, and May December was no exception. I really, really liked this film. It's very well acted, but it also has such a interesting color palette. And one of those cases, again, where it's like, wow, this would look really, really good on physical media. Sounds great too, but again, it's one of those cases where it did pick up 1 Oscar nomination, so maybe Criterion and Netflix will, work together to actually have, this on physical media. Fingers crossed, but not holding my breath, unfortunately. But it's my number 9. Next up, my number 8, we have Kimmy. This was a 2022 film that debuted on HBO Max, and as of filming this video, is still on there. This is directed by Steven Soderbergh, who is a really, really good director. He did the Ocean's trilogy. He did Unsane. He did Solaris, the 2002 remake, Traffic. He is, again, a pretty darn good director. And Kimmy is a thrilling film. It takes a lot of references from like Blowout, Blow Up, and of course Rear Window. I liked this film quite a bit. I think especially what it does with the sound mixing is really good. I think that it would be a really, really cool thing to see this on physical media. I think that visually it's also very, very appealing. So hopefully, fingers crossed we get this. But again, not holding my breath with this one because whilst it did well with critics, it didn't really do as well with audiences, and there was like no Oscar buzz or anything. So it might be one of those movies that unfortunately gets sucked up in terms of the streaming algorithm. But again, wanted to mention this movie because if you haven't seen it, and if you have HBO Max, check it out. But if you don't, fingers crossed with physical media. So again, this is the shame of it all. So that was my number 8. Next up, my number 7, we have Leave the World Behind. So this was directed by Sam Esmail, the director of the TV show Mr. Robot. Yeah, if you're new to the channel, Mr. Robot is my favorite TV show of all time. I think it's a great show. So I was, of course, very much so looking forward to this movie. And I think the ironic part is that this is a film that is on Netflix, and yet it is a film that is very pro-physical media. Not going to spoil the ending or anything, but the ending itself really hits home the importance of physical media. And yet this is a film that isn't on physical media, which makes it all the more saddening. Please, Netflix, grow some balls and actually put this film on physical media, because this is a really entertaining film. But again, audiences weren't that big of a fan of. Critics, it seemed like, were, but I still think this is a film that maybe Netflix work with Criterion on a transfer for this, because I think it would be pretty darn good. That was my number 7. Next up, my number 6. This is a film that I saw recently, and it's called Boiling Point. This is a film that came out in 2021. It is, as the film in this video, streaming on Prime. I don't know if it's a Prime original, but I do know that when I looked it up on Box Office Mojo, I couldn't find that it was playing anywhere in America. Overseas, it looks like it did. But if you liked the TV show The Bear, which is on Hulu, I think you would love this film, because this is a film that actually came out before that, and it's filmed all in one take. And it is anxiety-inducing, thrilling, and just really, really well done. I want this in my Blu-ray collection. I can't really see it getting a 4K, but I want this in my physical media collection. I think a Blu-ray would be especially, honestly, welcoming. So please, get this on physical media. Boiling Point is so, so good, and not enough people talk about it. And, yep. My number 6. Next up, we get into the nitty-gritty top 5. So my number 5, we have I'm Thinking of Ending Things, which is a 2020 film that came out on Netflix, directed by Charlie Kaufman, and of course written by Charlie Kaufman. Look, this is a film that when it came out in 2020, I thought was solid, but I've been thinking about it for the last 4 years, and I'm constantly always wanting to check it out again. But here's the thing. I don't know about you guys, but for myself, when I own something, it's a lot easier to look through 500 movies as opposed to thousands upon thousands of movies on a streaming service. So even though I have this still on my watch list for Netflix to rewatch it, it's a lot less overwhelming than a watch list on like a streaming service. It's a lot more manageable when I have it on physical media. So if I had this film on physical media, it would be one of those things where I can look at it and say, okay, that's a reminder. I need to check it out, as opposed to, oh yeah, I need to go on Netflix and look through my 50 to 100 movies that are on my watch list. So it's just one of those things where it's a me thing. I get it. But this is a film that I do think would look pretty good on Blu-ray or even 4K. So Netflix, work with Criterion. I think this would be a welcoming addition to Criterion. But that was my number 5. Next up, my number 4, one of the most underrated films of 2023, in my personal opinion, and that is Fair Play. This is yet another Netflix film, and yet again, I think that they should be partnering with Netflix. I mean, not with Netflix, with Criterion. Here's the thing. Yet again, this is a film that if I owned on physical media, I would rewatch probably another 2-3 times right away, because I really liked it. The one time I saw it on Netflix, I found it to be thrilling. I found it to be thought-provoking. It's just a really well put together film, but guess what? Similar to I'm Thinking of Ending Things, it is on that watch list on Netflix to rewatch, and because of just how overwhelming that list is, it's been kind of put on the back burner, unfortunately. But yeah, great film. One of my favorites of 2023. And yeah, Netflix, get on it with Criterion. That was my number 4. Next up, my number 3, we have The Night Comes for Us. You like the Raid films? Yeah? Good. Watch this film. I think you'll really like it. This is a thrilling, action-packed, really, really well done film. It is one of the best action films of the 2010s for sure. No question about that. And yet, similar to these other Netflix films, I have had it on my rewatch list for a long time, and I just haven't done it. But if this came out in physical media, I would spend $20 on it, 100%, because this is a really, really good film, especially from the audio perspective. Holy cow. This is what action fans want, and I'm sure that physical media collectors, if they see this and they don't have Netflix, they will actually want to put out $20 to support this movie, as opposed to, you know what, let me put it towards a streaming service. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, that's my number 3. Next up, my number 2. This is a very, very underappreciated film. My number 2 is Forgotten. This came out in 2017. It is a South Korean film, and it is one of the best mystery films of the 2010s. It gave me a lot of Old Boy vibes. Go into it knowing as little as possible. I know that's what I did, and you'll really like this film. But here's the thing. Again, the algorithm of Netflix. You probably haven't heard of it because of that very reason. For me, I had to look up some of the best horror films. It's a gray area in regards to if it's a horror film or not, but I had to look up some of the best horror films, and that's how I found it. That was a list of like 50, as opposed to how many thousands of films are on Netflix? So that's all I'm saying. Here, take it from me. Forgotten, check it out. Physical media release, I would pick it up day 1. No question about it. And, yep, Forgotten. It's my number 2. Next up, my number 1. This is a film that I actually did see in theaters, but I actually had to drive an hour plus away in order to catch it because it was only in indie theaters. My number 1 is The Killer. David Fincher's The Killer, I should say. The Killer is one of my favorite films of 2023. It is also a Netflix film, and I don't think we're going to see a physical media release for this sometime soon because, I mean, David Fincher's Mank hasn't even gotten a physical media release. So I don't think that this is one of those films where it's like, yeah, let's get it on physical media. I think that the studio has put it on the back burner, and that's a shame because the audio especially is just fantastic, but David Fincher's visuals, as we all know, are also incredible. And I'd be happy with just a Blu-ray, but if we did get a 4K, I would love that as well. So a lot of these, I'm like, you know what, I would expect them just to release it on Blu-ray, but at the same time, these days, a 4K transfer would also be nice. So even if it's one of those things where they put it on Blu-ray, if it's a 4K transfer, that would still be pretty cool. So yeah, that is my top 10 movies that I want on physical media, guys. So let me know your top 10 movies that you want on physical media. I'm very curious to see your list. Maybe I missed some. And that's what's great about these lists. Everyone's list will be different. No question about it. So let me know yours in the comment section down below. And I also just wanted to mention, if you did want to become a member of my Patreon, you guys can check that out on my channel, as well as if you haven't yet done so, please hit the subscription, notification bell, follow me down Letterboxd, and I will catch you guys later.